I have always wondered why people were dirt poor starting out, and then they became celebrities and their fortunes changed. What happened? Well, I'm here to tell you. In this and other videos in this series, you will find out. In the late 90s, I noticed that Neptune and Pluto were in tandem in the cosmos, 60 degrees give or take, even though Neptune takes around 150 years to go around the zodiac and Pluto takes around 245. Around the early 40s, they started to form a master yod, as I call it, hanging out 60 degrees apart. How does that work, you ask? Most orbits are not circular. They are oblong, and they go through some signs quicker than others. For Neptune and Pluto, the farthest planets from us, they have been doing this for about 80 years. A sextile, or 60 degrees apart, creates what is called a yod, or inconjunct, which is 150 degrees from both planets on the other side of the chart. It is called the finger of God point, as if God is pointing and is showing us the answer. We just have to figure it out. This series will show which planet the God point is aimed at any given time in a chart to see how we can use this information to plot our future. Before Trump ran for office, like in the 90s, I looked up his birth date, and I feel it was in that Astro data bank, but I'm not sure. It wasn't the chart that we use now. At that time, it was attributed to his mother. The time was about an hour prior from the chart we usually use. So who are you going to believe, his mother or Trump? If it was in the Astro data bank, it has not been up there for maybe 20 years or so. But to me, this chart works better. Just that one lone hour. This is Mom's chart. In this series, I have commented that I have Venus in Leo. Love those Leos. For me, it's Barack Obama, Joe Biden, see my video on him, and I would hazard a guess that Val Demings has Leo rising. Nancy Pelosi has late Leo rising. I know Jonathan Capehart has Mars in Leo. I can spot them that far down the list. There are very few Leos I don't like. So when I realized DJT had Leo rising, that gave me pause. With his sun in Gemini near Uranus, that's a lot of air. Cool and objective. And with Uranus there, it is the higher octave of Mercury to be intellectual and logical and rational. But it is Pluto in Leo near the ascendant that gives him the emotional, reactionary energy that fights with the air energy and wins. Pluto is domineering and controlling, who sees disrespect at every nuance. It is a sexual sign, where that coarse sexuality comes from in his chart. It's not Gemini. Pluto is at odds with his air sign, Sun and Uranus, because the energy can't exist at the same time. Carl Jung said, you can't be subjective and objective at the same time. You can turn on a nanosecond, but you can't be in the both energies. You can be earthy and air, you can be fiery and air, but not air and water. Pluto gives Leo a scorpionic dictatorial flavor, and this Aquarian rising person doesn't want her wings clipped. DJT was born in 1946 as Saturn was moving into a rendezvous with Pluto in 1947. It wasn't a good time for a baby with this aspect in his first house. Even for a trust fund baby with a silver spoon in his mouth, Pluto amps up the sign, and the royal Leo knows he is better than others. When Saturn aspects Pluto, Saturn tends to squelch that ego. When Saturn meets with Pluto, or with Neptune for that matter, it becomes another actor in the yod. In 2022, we have Saturn at the midpoint between them, directly at the yod point. This happened in his early infancy as well. Primarily, Pluto is up near the 11th cusp in the official one. When he ran for the presidency, the yod point was pointing to Pluto power, and in the mom's chart, it is closer to the ascendant, just about to move, quote, into the spotlight, unquote, in the first. Then Neptune in the official chart is just into the second house, the money house, while in mom's chart it shows it's at the end of that house, and we know Neptune dissolves where it's found. So at the beginning would dissolve his wealth. With mom's chart, it's at the end for what's going down now. For surely Neptune in the money house would not be in the chart of a billionaire, or a millionaire for that matter. If we extrapolate it, it makes more sense that Neptune dissolves his wealth at the end, and the mirage of the billions that he always projected to the public was the miasma of Neptune's energy as it came to the end. We can theorize that the lying and prevaricating is part of Neptune in the second, exaggerating his wealth and being fast and loose with the facts. We may find that it was a big Ponzi scheme when the dust settles. It doesn't matter that Jupiter in mom's chart is now in the third house, because it's the last slow-moving planet from the master yod point. As we have seen, that's the best planet to have there, bouncing off Jupiter for wealth and money. The yod point between Pluto and Neptune is pointing at the 7th, the partnership house, maybe denoting his many wives. The 7th is also the house of mom's mom and dad's dad, and Ivanka, the second child. While the yod point is directed at the 7th house, Jupiter is in the 3rd house with Chiron, which says that money and wealth and the, quote, love of money, unquote, as well as politics, can be his wound to heal. As the point was moving into the 60s, Donnie was around 10. When the point moved in Taurus, he was in his mid-20s. When the point moved into Gemini, a shift happened because it started moving through a cluster of planets in Gemini, starting with Uranus, where he became prominent, and he felt the energy of Uranus pulling out on him. It was the year after Saturn and Pluto clashed in the sky, and we woke up to find that the Donald was in bankruptcy. It was 1984. At that time, we were astonished that this billionaire was in financial peril. His casino, the Taj Mahal, was in jeopardy. We wouldn't know until his stint with the presidency that this was something he does loose and fast with his money. The fact that it wasn't during his Saturn period shows he probably wasn't as concerned about it as we were. While we think of Uranus as erudite and intellectual, we need to remember that it is, along with Neptune, one of the outlaws in the zodiac. Laws and rules are for other people. Uranus is close to his Gemini sun, And in Gemini, that's like Aquarius amping up his intellect. He may be playing he is not well read, but it's a good bet that he puts this dumb facade up to promote his fox with sheep's clothing act. Gemini is intellectual to begin with, and with Uranus conjunct the sun, it's like he's had an Aquarius shot of intellect to boot. And then he had a bad patch when the point moved over Saturn and Venus. That was when he bought the beauty pageants, and reportedly he walked into the dressing rooms where the teens were only partially clothed. The point moved into Leo in 2008, and then in 2011 he was in attendance at the Washington Correspondents' Dinner, where President Obama alluded to him in his remarks. The point moved over Pluto when he ran for the presidency to Mars now at 2022, and we see all the defeats he's being taken, one after another, blowing his stack, as life isn't playing out the way it is supposed to as it has in the rest of his life. Since the midterms, we have seen headlines such as "Rage like I've never seen," and "Trump rages over midterm losses," and "Meltdown, Trump rages." The fact that Mars is in his first house natally, where it and Pluto are straddling the ascendant, it makes it that much more incendiary. The point going over Mars in someone else's chart without this combination would be much tamer. When the point moves into Virgo and starts moving through the money house and eventually Neptune, maybe he will be resigned to it. When the point gets to 7 degrees, then it will be at the midpoint between Pluto and Neptune, aiming its arrow to the original yod point where it started all those years ago in 1946. Down the road, April of 2026 should see the chickens come home to roost. At that time, Mars will be at 7 of Aries, as well as Saturn, while Neptune is at 2 degrees. Saturn is that knock on the door in the wee hours of the night when the feds come knocking. In the meantime, we will be seeing all the machinations reaching that point. This will be the arrow between Pluto and Neptune aiming at the natal yod point. If he gets to 2026, we will see what plays out. As I've created this video and went over and over and over it, seeing DJT's face before me, dang, I do see that Leo. That large head, the mane of hair, coiffed as it is. Actually, he is better looking than in his insouciant days when he was a playboy. Leos can be the life of the party, wanting to pick up people's spirits. They are the one that everybody wants to hang out with. When they turn that inward is when the trouble starts.